My name is Willa Drummond. I'm 67 years old, and I live in Missoula, Montana. My husband kept a Cedar box on the top shelf of his workshop for 11 years and told me two things about it. The first was in 2013, on a Tuesday in October, when he carried it in from the truck, still smelling like the hardware store. He said, "This stays up here. You don't need to touch it." The second was in December of last year, 6 weeks before he died, when he couldn't get up the workshop steps anymore, and I brought him his coffee out to the porch instead. He said, "Willa, when the time comes and you'll know when, open that box. But don't let Amber be there when you do." I asked him what was in it. He said, "A plan." His name was Clarence. We were married 43 years. He built custom cabinetry out of a two-bay shop on the south side of our property, and he was good at it, the way quiet men are good at things, without announcement. He died on a Wednesday morning in February. Pancreatic cancer, diagnosed the previous September. He took the news the way he took a bad board. Looked at it from both sides, set it aside, found a way around it. I should tell you what I did for work because it matters later. I spent 37 years as a school librarian. I started in 1987 at Jefferson Elementary here in Missoula, and I retired from Hellgate Middle School in 2024. If you have never worked in a school library, here is what it actually is. It is one long argument against the idea that information is hard to find. My whole job was teaching children, and more often their teachers, that what they needed already existed somewhere, already organized, already public, already waiting. You just had to know how to look. 37 years, I taught people how to find things. In my own house, I never looked at a single document. The deed to 2214 Rattlesnake Drive says Clarence E. Drummond. We bought it in 1984 for $79,500. His parents helped with the down payment, and his name went on the paperwork because that is how it was done that year, and I never thought to ask. The truck was his. The shop accounts were his. My name was on the joint checking and the joint savings, but both of those were opened when we were 24, and I signed where they pointed without reading what I signed. That is not a thing that happened to me. That is a thing I did. I handed over 43 years of paper because it was one less thing on a Wednesday, and I trusted the man I gave it to. I'm not saying that was right. I'm saying it was true. Our daughter Amber is 44. She lives in Scottsdale now, but she grew up here. She has been in real estate since she was 26, and she is very good at it in the way that requires you to think about property the way other people think about weather, always moving, always a number attached. Her husband Dennis is 47. He does something in commercial lending. At Clarence's funeral, they flew in on a Thursday, and Amber wore a black coat I'd never seen and managed everything at the door with the efficiency of someone who has done it before. I was proud of her for most of that day. Our other daughter, Ingrid, is 40. She's a nurse at Bozeman Health, and she drove up the morning of the service with a casserole dish wrapped in a dish towel. She is the one I can say the exact true thing to when I am frightened, and she will not flinch. The will was read at the office of Hartley and Associates on Brook Street, February 28th. 12 of us in a conference room that smelled like carpet cleaner. The attorney's name was Dale Hartley, 58, bifocals on a cord. He read the same way a man reads the instructions on medication, careful but not personally invested. Article 2 left me Clarence's personal effects and the household furnishings. There was a provision for my use of the residence, for as long as is practical, before title transferred to Amber. Article 3 left the workshop and its equipment to Amber, along with the property in its entirety. Article 4 split his financial accounts 60% to Amber, 40% to Ingrid. Amber did not laugh. That was not her way. What she did was reach across and squeeze my hand and say, "Mom, you don't have to worry about anything. We'll figure out the timeline together." She said it the way you say something in a room full of people when the thing you're saying is partly for the room. Dennis nodded. He had been nodding steadily since Dale Hartley opened the folder, the way a man nods when a meeting is going the way he expected. Dale Hartley kept reading. He did not look up at me, but I noticed. Because I spent 37 years watching for the moment. A child's face changes when they finally find what they were looking for. That his pen stopped moving for about 1 second when he finished Article 2. Just stopped. Then it started again. I filed that away and kept it. I drove home alone. I left my coat on the hook and sat down at the kitchen table and did the arithmetic I had been avoiding. I get $1,847 a month from Social Security. I have $34,000 in joint savings, which is now half mine by right and half under Amber's authority as executor. I am 67 years old, and the house I have slept in every night for 41 years has my husband's name on the deed, and the will says Amber gets it. At 4 p.m, Amber sent me a text with 3 links. Senior communities in Missoula, 1 in Hamilton. Her message said, "Just so you have options, Mom. The one on South Avenue has a craft room." The exclamation point was there. I remember it. I went and checked whether I needed to defrost anything for dinner. I stood in front of the open freezer for about a minute, not seeing anything in it. Then I walked out to the workshop. It smelled like sawdust and linseed oil and the cold, specific smell of a room where someone worked for 30 years and now doesn't. The cedar box was on the top shelf where it had always been. Brown cedar, brass hinges, about the size of a shoebox. He'd made it himself. The joints were clean the way his joints always were. I got it down and brought it to his workbench. I want to tell you what I was thinking, standing there with my hands on the lid, but the honest answer is, I was just standing there in my dead husband's shop in February with the fluorescent light buzzing and my coat still on. Then I opened it. On top was a manila envelope sealed with a metal clasp. Under that was a notebook, the kind with green graph paper pages, the ones science teachers use. Under the notebook was a sealed white envelope with my name on the front in his handwriting. Willa. That was all. Just my name, in the block letters he used when he wanted something read clearly. I opened the manila envelope first. 2 documents. The first was a deed, not the deed I knew about. This one was dated March 14, 2021. I read the title 3 times. Beneficiary deed. Clarence E. Drummond, grantor. Willa J. Drummond, beneficiary. Property. 2214 Rattlesnake Drive, Missoula, Missoula County, Montana. In the bottom right corner, a purple stamp. Missoula County Clerk and Recorder. Recorded March 17, 2021. Book 892, page 441. I did not know what a beneficiary deed was. I had to sit down on his stool. The second document was a single page from Glacier Peak Credit Union. Account statement. Account holder, Willa J. Drummond. Balance, as of January 31st of this year, $291,440. I have never in my life had $291,440 in an account with my name on it. My name was not in second position, not in smaller type. First name, middle initial, last name. Right there at the top of the page, the way you'd write it at a doctor's office. I put the page down on the workbench and sat on that stool for a long time. Then I did what 37 years trained me to do when I find something I don't understand. I didn't guess, I inventoried. I got a sheet of graph paper from the notebook and wrote down everything in the box. 1. Beneficiary deed, recorded 2021. 2. Credit union statement, account in my name, $291,440. 3. The green notebook. 4. The sealed letter. I opened the notebook. It was a ledger, 3 columns, pencil, date, amount, balance. The first line was November 3rd, 2011, $800. Then the next month, $800. Then $200 the month after that. Page after page in his small, even handwriting, 14 years of deposits. Some months $600, some months $2,000 when the shop had a good quarter. But there was always something. Never a month blank. Until October 2024. October was the month after the diagnosis. I turned to the next page. November, nothing. December, 1 entry. $300. The handwriting was different, heavier, like he was pressing harder to see the line. The letters didn't sit as straight, and in the margin next to January, in parentheses, he had written 3 words. Last one, sorry. I put the notebook down and went inside and made myself a cup of tea because my body needed something to do. Standing at the stove waiting for the water, I heard Amber again from that conference room. "Mom, you don't have to worry about anything. The warmth in it. The exact same warmth as 3 links to senior communities. The arithmetic that adds up to. She'll agree." I turned off the stove. I went back out to the workshop and picked up the white envelope. I want to be honest about why I waited that long. I was afraid of what it would feel like to hear his voice when he wasn't there to answer back. 1 page, both sides, ballpoint, dated March 2021, the same week as the deed. He wrote, "Willa, if you're reading this the way I expect you to, Amber has already told you what you're getting, and it isn't the house. I know our girl. I know how she thinks about property. I don't blame her for it. She watched us almost lose this house in '91, and it changed something in her, and I understand that. But I needed you to have something she can't reorganize." Then he wrote, "The beneficiary deed is recorded at the courthouse. That means the house passed to you the day I died, not through the will, not through probate, directly to you. Amber is the executor of my estate, but the house isn't in my estate anymore. Hasn't been since March 17, 2021. The credit union account is transfer on death, your name only. Same thing. It's yours the moment I go. She doesn't administer it, she doesn't touch it." Then he wrote, "Go to the county recorder's office before you talk to anyone. Get the certified copies. Don't call Amber first." And then, 4 lines from the bottom, he underlined 1 sentence twice. "You have spent 37 years teaching people how to find things. This one I left where anyone could find it. I just needed you to be the one who looked." I sat on the floor of that workshop for a long time. The fluorescent light kept buzzing. Outside, my neighbor Dorothy's dog was barking at something on the fence. Normal February Thursday, and I sat there with a piece of paper in my hands and thought about the 14 years he kept this and never said a word. He knew. Every month he drove to that credit union on Reserve Street, made a deposit, drove home, and asked me how my day was. He built that account the way he built a cabinet, joint by joint, no announcement, no rush. Welcome to Brave Mom Stories. This is where women who were told to sit down tell the stories they were told to keep quiet. If you want to hear how this ends, subscribe before we go any further, and drop a comment telling me what state you're watching from. I should tell you about Amber properly, because she is not a cartoon, and I am not going to pretend she is. She was 11 years old when she stood in our hallway listening to us talk at the kitchen table about the mortgage we couldn't make for the 4th month in a row. The shop had lost 2 big clients that year, and we were 2 weeks from the bank calling. She watched that, and she became a real estate agent at 26, and she has been moving money into secured positions ever since. I understand where that comes from. I have never confused understanding for permission. 3 days after the funeral, she called to say a realtor friend would walk through the house on Tuesday. Just to get a sense of the market. Mom, no pressure. That same afternoon, my neighbor Dorothy came over with lemon bars and told me that Dennis had knocked on her door the week before the service, while Clarence was still in hospice, asking whether the cabin rental on our back acre was month to month or on a lease. He told her they were trying to get a full picture of the assets. She thought I knew. I didn't. The cabin. A man named Perry had rented it since 2019 for $750 a month. Clarence handled it. After the funeral, Perry had dropped off an envelope with February's rent. I'd set it on the kitchen counter. The next time I looked, it was gone. On Monday morning, I put on my good wool cardigan and drove 7 minutes to the Missoula County Courthouse on West Broadway. I had driven past that building for 40 years. I had taken students there on county government field trips twice. I had never once gone to the clerk and recorder's office on my own. Room 112, first floor. There's a counter, and behind it a woman whose nameplate said Agnes Muir. She was 52, reading glasses pushed up on her head, a coffee mug that said I paused my show for this. I told her I was looking for a recorded deed, and I didn't entirely know what I was doing. She said, "That's fine, most people don't." She walked me to the public terminal on the side counter. "Grantor index," she said. "The grantor is the one giving. Grantee is the one receiving. Put in the last name, pick your years, hit enter. I typed Drummond and pressed enter. 43 years of Clarence's name came up on that screen. Book 892, page 441. Beneficiary deed. Recorded March 17, 2021. Grantor, Drummond Clarence E. Grantee. Beneficiary, Drummond Willa J. There I was. In a public book, 4 years. Anyone could have walked in here with 20 minutes and found it. No one did. Agnes printed the record. I laid it next to the copy from the Cedar box and went through them line by line. Every word matched. Every number matched. The recording stamp matched. She made me a certified copy. $2 a page, $10 for the certification. $42 total. She gave me a receipt. I sat in my car in the parking lot and called Ingrid. She answered on the second ring. I read her the titles of everything in the box. Just the titles, the way you'd read a catalog entry. Beneficiary deed, TED account statement, ledger, letter. 4 seconds of quiet. Then she said, "Mom, the house passed to you at death. It is not in the estate. Amber doesn't control it." I told her I was sitting in the courthouse parking lot holding the certified copy. She made a sound I hadn't heard from her since she was small. Then she said, "Do you want me to drive up today?" I said, "Give me until Thursday." I met with an attorney named Grace Fielding on Wednesday. Her office is on South Higgins, 2nd floor, above the insurance agency. She has done estate and property law in Missoula County for 26 years. She charges $325 an hour, and she tells you that before you sit down, which I respected immediately. I put the Cedar box on her desk and didn't say anything else. She read for 18 minutes. The only sound she made was when she got to the ledger. She pushed her glasses up and looked at the last entry. "Last one, sorry." Then she set it down carefully, the way you set down something that belongs to someone. She said, "Mrs. Drummond, do you understand what your daughter's position requires?" I said I wasn't sure. "It requires the house to be in his estate," she said. "A beneficiary deed in Montana transfers directly at death. It never enters the estate. Your husband recorded this in 2021. That deed is 4 years old. The house became yours the morning he died." She tapped the credit union statement. The TD account is the same principle. She cannot administer it. She cannot touch it. Then she asked me something no one had thought to ask yet. "Did he tell you why he waited to tell you?" I said yes. There was a letter, and I thought she'd want to read it. She read it without expression until the last line. Then she set it down and looked at me for a moment. "He knew you," she said. It wasn't a question. She wrote the plan on a yellow pad and turned it around so I could see it. 2 columns. Left side, the house and the TD account outside the estate. Right side, everything else inside the estate, which Amber could administer as written. "But not the cabin rent," she said. "The cabin sits on your property. If the deed transferred to you, the rent belongs to you. We need to find out where February's payment went." I told her about the envelope that had disappeared from the counter. She wrote one word, accounting. We filed 3 things at Missoula County District Court on March 12th. A petition confirming title under the beneficiary deed, an objection to the estate inventory for the missing rental income, a demand for a full accounting from the executor. I will not walk you through every filing because this is not a legal brief. What I will tell you is the number that mattered. 4 years. That deed had been sitting in an open book on West Broadway for 4 years. Every attorney Amber hired would have found it in 20 minutes if anyone had gone to the courthouse. Nobody went. Amber called me on a Thursday night at 9. Her voice was controlled in the way a voice is controlled when someone is working very hard to keep it that way. She said, "Mom, I don't know who has been talking to you, but this is going to hurt this family." I said, "Amber, when did Dad record the beneficiary deed?" She stopped. "Go to the courthouse," I said. "Room 112. Agnes can help you find it." Then she said the thing I had been waiting for. He wouldn't have done this without someone influencing him. She said someone the way you say it, when you mean a specific person and don't want to name her yet. I said, "He did it in 2021. I didn't know about it until last week." Dennis texted an hour later. They had retained counsel. What I was doing constituted interference with the administration of an estate. They would be responding accordingly. I read it twice, put my phone face down, and was asleep by 9:47, the earliest I had slept in 6 weeks. Here is what their attorney did not do in the 2 weeks that followed. He did not pull the grantor index. He filed a challenge on undue influence, that Clarence had been advised by parties with an interest in the outcome. He took the case on his client's word that the deed was somehow invalid, without checking whether the deed existed. The hearing was April 18th, Courtroom 4, Missoula County District Court. Same building as the recorder's office, different floor. I wore the gray cardigan. Ingrid drove up the night before and we ate soup at the kitchen table, and she asked me if I was ready. I told her I had spent 37 years teaching people that the answer was already out there. I was just the first one who looked. Grace had 4 documents on the table: the original deed from the Cedar box, the certified copy from room 112, the recording entry from the grantor index, and the credit union's transfer on death beneficiary designation, signed by Clarence in 2011. Amber's attorney was polite. He argued that a man in declining health cannot make sound decisions about property transfers. The judge asked him when the deed was recorded. March of 2021, Your Honor. And when was the decedent diagnosed? September 2024. The judge looked at the certified copy for a moment. Then he asked Grace if she wished to respond. Grace stood up and said 2 sentences. The deed was recorded publicly at this courthouse on March 17, 2021. It has been available in the grantor index for 4 years, 3 months, and 2 days, and no one on the other side ever looked. Amber's attorney sat down. The judge confirmed title. The house was mine. The TOD account was mine. He ordered a full accounting of the estate within 30 days, including all rental income received since the date of death. He appointed a co-administrator to oversee it, a woman from Hamilton who answers her phone on the first ring. We came out into the corridor. Ingrid took my arm. Amber was 10 feet ahead with Dennis and their attorney, and none of them looked back. Then Amber stopped. She turned around. Dennis kept walking. She stood in that hallway in her black coat, and she looked like someone who had been told a thing she had suspected for weeks and had been hoping wasn't true. She said, "He never told me either." I knew that. I had known it since I read the letter. Clarence loved his daughters. He didn't build this to wound her. He built it to protect me, and the cost of that was keeping it from everyone, including her. I said, "I know." She said, "Why didn't you just call me? When you found it, why didn't you call me?" And I told her what I had been sitting with since the workshop in February. Because if I had called you the week I found it, Dennis would have asked a lawyer one question, and that lawyer would have told him one thing to do to fix it, and he would have done it, and everything would have reset. Your dad didn't keep this from you to hurt you. He kept it from me because he knew if I found it too soon, I would try to smooth it over before it was finished. She stood there. Then she said, "He should have talked to me." I said, "Yes, he should have, because he should have. That part is true, and I am not going to pretend otherwise." She walked to the elevator. The doors closed. What happened after is in order because dates matter more than feelings. April 29th, the full accounting was filed. February's rental payment, $750, was returned and credited to me as property owner. May 3rd, the quiet title order was entered at the county recorder's office. The record for 2214 Rattlesnake Drive, Missoula County, Montana now reads, Owner, Willa J. Drummond. Just that. May 15th, I called Perry at the cabin and told him where to send the checks going forward. He said he was glad I'd called. He'd been confused about who to pay for 2 months and hadn't wanted to bother anyone. The TOD account transferred at $291,440. I moved it to a local credit union under my name and set up direct deposit for the rental income. June came, and the lilac bush Clarence planted in 2009 bloomed the same as every year, which I mention because I expected it not to, and it did. In July, Ingrid brought her daughter. My granddaughter Phoebe, she's 14, up for a long weekend. On Saturday morning, I drove the three of us to the Missoula County Courthouse on West Broadway, room 112. Agnes Muir was at the counter with the same coffee mug. I showed Phoebe the terminal, the grantor index. You type in a last name, pick your years, hit enter. Everything recorded in this county under that name, deeds, transfers, liens, assignments, comes up on the screen, public record, free to search. She typed Drummond and pressed enter. She scrolled through it, 43 years of Clarence's name, and then, at the top of the list, the most recent entry. Beneficiary deed recorded March 17, 2021. Drummond, Willa J., grantee. She looked at me. You're on here. I've been on here for 4 years, I said. We just didn't know to look. She read through the other entries the way kids do when something turns out to be more interesting than they expected. Then, she asked me, how do you know which records matter? I told her the same thing I told students for 37 years when they couldn't find what they needed in the stacks. You read every title. You don't skip one because it sounds boring. The one that saves you is usually the one you almost didn't open. We stopped for coffee on the way home. I drove back to Rattlesnake Drive in the afternoon with the windows down because it was finally warm enough. I made dinner in my kitchen. I watched the last of the light leave the rattlesnake range from the window above the sink. The same window I have stood at every clear evening since 1984. The cedar box sits on Clarence's workbench. I put everything back in it the way I found it. The deed, the ledger, the letter. The letter I have read 4 more times now. The last line is the one I come back to. You have spent 37 years teaching people how to find things. This one I left where anyone could find it. I just needed you to be the one who looked. I was. It cost me $42 at the courthouse, 3 months of the hardest waiting I have ever done, and 1 afternoon in a courtroom I would not repeat for any amount of money. What it gave me was a deed with my name on it and a room I know how to stand in. That is the whole story. 1 cedar box, 4 years sitting in an open public record, and a daughter who never checked. If this made you think of a document you have never read, go read it this week. You do not need a lawyer to walk into your county recorder's office. You do not need to know what you are looking for. Walk up to the counter and give them your last name. Tell them you want to see anything recorded under it. See what comes up. Drop a comment and tell me what state you're in. And if you want to hear more stories like this one, subscribe before you go. I'll be here.